This is a pretty short article from NPR about, Trump citing EO about consolidating all of our data into one place. There's a reason why cybersecurity experts are raising an alarm at this. Elon Musk's team within the Trump administration has sought sweeping access to databases that store personal information on millions and millions of Americans. The data collected and maintained by the government isn't just your name, home address, and social security number. Some federal agencies store information that many people don't share even with their closest friends and family. Medical diagnoses, treatment, notes from therapy sessions, whether a person has filed for bankruptcy, detailed income information. And now, Musk's Doge has accessed heavily safeguarded databases that store such personal information, raising deep alarm among federal workers and privacy advocates. Musk says he's targeting waste and fraud. The executive order establishing Doge says its purpose is modernizing federal technology and software to maximize governmental efficiency and productivity. And it instructs agency heads to ensure that Doge has full and prompt access to all unclassified agency records, software systems, and IT systems. But Erie Meyer, who resigned last month from her post as chief technologist at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau after the change in administration, doesn't trust Doge. Part of what is unnerving and scary to both companies whose data is involved and also Americans whose most sensitive financial information is at risk is that we don't know what they're doing, she says. We kind of do. They're consolidating this data for a reason. Normally, according to Meyer, federal employees handling sensitive data must pass extensive background checks, but it's not clear what sort of vetting or background checks Musk staff have undergone. Are they willing to do ketamine while they're at work, I guess? Musk says his staffers need to have the same security clearances as other employees. Anyone from Doge has to go through the same vetting process that those federal employees went through, he said recently on Joe Rogan, which they don't. Some agency has had to push back on the notion that they're accessing too much data, saying that Doge has read-only access and cannot make changes in their systems. At least a dozen lawsuits have been filed over their right to access data. Unions and groups like the Center for Taxpayer Rights are filing lawsuits, both to stop them from accessing any more data and to discover what kind of information the team has already collected. Deep privacy concerns. The risks are real, according to half a dozen technology experts who spoke with NPR for this story. Americans' personal data could be sold, lost, or leaked, or it could be used to enrich a few. But above all, they warn America's essential privacy is at stake. There are several laws, including the Privacy Act of '74, that govern how the government collects and stores personal data. Strict rules limit when the government agencies can share that data with each other. Those limits are by design. Everyone thinks the government already has this data in a connected way, says one former federal worker who did not want to be named to preserve future job prospects. But they really don't, because it's firewalled. Some current and former government workers fear that Musk's plan is to bring huge amounts of government data together to create deeply personal files on individual Americans. Bingo, bingo, bingo. That's it. One of them is Jonathan Kamens, who was overseeing cybersecurity for VA.gov until he was terminated last month, alongside some 40 of his colleagues at the U.S. Digital Service, a little-known government unit that Trump turned into Doge. He points to authoritarian regimes that create dossiers used to control individuals. Bingo. That's what I want people to be scared of, said Kamens, that this data the government has on them, which in some cases can be used to damage them, will be used to damage them. Doge did not reply to questions from NPR about the personal information it is accessing or how it plans to use that data. Here's an overview of a few federal agencies that hold data on large swaths of Americans and where things stand with the Doge team's access. The IRS, what the agency has, names, addresses, social security numbers for anyone who's paid federal taxes, financial information including income and net worth, bank account information for direct deposits, any itemizations from medical expenses to charitable donations, whether someone had filed for bankruptcy or been a victim of identity theft. And then much can be inferred from that data, including marital status, dependents, and familial relations. Where things stand, the White House and Treasury Department have agreed to prohibit Doge from accessing personal taxpayer data, the Washington Post reported, and instead will have read-only access to anonymized tax data. NPR has not independently confirmed this reporting, and the IRS did not reply to the NPR's request for information on what access Doge has. But with new leadership coming to the IRS, there's concern that Doge access would be expanded in the future, according to a current employee who did not wish to be identified for fear of retaliation. Tax records reveal many aspects of someone's life. Also, if someone had the ability to edit IRS data, they could write their own tax bill down to zero and max out those of your enemies, said the employee. The Social Security Administration. what the agency has: records of individuals' lifetime wages and earnings, social security numbers of workers and their beneficiaries, and the type and amount of benefits they receive, information on those applying for SSI, including citizenship status, income, and payment amount, disability and health status data on everyone who has applied for disability benefits. As it stands, a coalition of unions and retirees have filed a lawsuit aiming to halt Doge's access to SSA data. Democratic senators, including Tammy Baldwin and Elizabeth Warren, have sent letters demanding to know exactly what Doge has. Leland Dudek, SSA's acting commissioner, said in an earlier statement that Doge personnel have read-only access and cannot make changes to systems, benefit payments, or information. I don't believe it. Why it matters. Tiffany Flick, the agency's acting chief of staff since she retired last month, expressed concerns about Doge access in a declaration included in the lawsuit filed by the unions. Flick believes that Doge staffers are accessing SSA information from the inside of the Office of Personnel Management. That could mean that SSA's data protections don't work, and the data can be accessed by other staff who have not been vetted or trained by SSA. Bingo, again. Others could take pictures of the data, transfer it to other locations, even feed it into AI programs. And in such a chaotic environment, the risk of data leaking into the wrong hands is significant. Center for Medicare, Medicaid Services. So they basically have personal information as well as health information for everyone with Medicare. That's generally people over 65. CMS has their Social Security number, documentation of their eligibility, says a source who previously worked with CMS and Social Security systems. According to a statement from CMS spokesperson, 2 veterans employees of CMS are leading the collaboration with Doge. The Doge staffers have been given read-only access, and none of the information they have access to contains personal health information. I don't believe it. They have the largest amount of data in one single place about the largest group of users of healthcare. A data breach could mean sharing the American sensitive health data, and a company could use health data and financial data together to charge people more for health services. The VA, man, the VA's healthcare arm is the largest integrated healthcare network in the country, so the agency had vast stores of veterans' health data. This includes records of substance abuse and addiction, mental health issues, even notes from therapy sessions. That's in addition to basic personal information like addresses and phone numbers. Also, their military records. A Doge staffer has been present at the VA, and it's not clear what data he has access to, according to the current agency employee with knowledge of the situation. Senate Democrats have also requested information about what they have and what access they've been granted to. There's this rumor out there about Doge that's going to take personal information. We got a Doge representatives here that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, like looking like contracts for efficiencies. Don't believe it. Jonathan Kamens, who was detailed to the VA as an employee of the U.S. Digital Service, offers a hypothetical. A veteran who speaks out against the Trump administration, whose records show a history of PTSD and opioid addiction following battlefield injuries. Someone with access to that information could use it to discredit the veteran in the public eye. The data that the federal government holds on people is kind of like the identity theft mother lode. So if you can just steal the government data, you can pretend to be anyone. It should be terrifying. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They have names, addresses, social security numbers, financial transactions. They also have troves of data about litigation. If the Bureau has investigated a company for collecting too much information on people, it has that too. The Trump administration has required Bureau staff to give Doge sweeping God-tier access to the Bureau's data. Amid litigation, the government has agreed for now to not delete or remove data held by CFPB, following a declaration by Meyer that Trump appointees plan to delete databases holding CFPB data. The Bureau also has consumer complaints about people who submit to the Bureau about companies. Yeah, Musk knows that. That's why he hit the CFPB. So the database could not just have people's information, but the worst financial thing that has ever happened to them and how a company responded. Everybody knows why this is a nightmare, right? And Musk purposely wants all of this data in one place so that they can build elaborate dossiers on everybody in this country and hold it against us. You can't hold anything I've ever done against me, motherfuckers. But I can't say that about other people out there. And we do need to be worried. This is part of their technocratic, kleptocratic seizure of our government and their God tier, their surveillance state. That's why they want our data.